Dhamma sanje jante ne pe jawa nyaja dhupa na chakse chodo joso che wo kongze kanyi zo che tangze sa che de gomba de bo ne nga ne je de de na cho je so de de ke ba che la chakse lo nang da gong a cho do zo zang 一切当作是这两波着，这波就得所当能源，广播求念就老将子老，追求的波知名道义，三多着我就老将子老，对着接着是波苏嘛。两边听见就老将子老，广播都就接的。当觉这个的宝宝是那一的叫做天仙仙了小子了，道别的叫着我，月月跟送的周先，许多的大舅舅，先就求了小子了，祝年祝月那样。老婆到老老多年，心月当把一年。感觉那样像子路，对吧？这样不讲，给我别说做把戏，让给三年用着，天天上街颠簸也，干嘛着这方面？要么是我去不懂，可能落到这道。这些就能得到，是能得遇上几次吧。广播道的解决着的，我当七月老主，随便做的着我哟。
Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son of a lineage trained who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Sharadvatiputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure, they neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on up to no old age and death and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom. and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra for the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Lamadong Gongbo Jizhen Jiangbi Yangla Xiangzi Lo Kangye Lo Zhu Zhenye Zhenzhen Nye Da Nang Da Rang Se Wen Jue De Ge Qi Zhen Zi Shi Nye Zhe Tu Gua Ne Bong Zin Kang Da Si Bi Zi Ra Ma Ri Mi Tong Tu Ge Ji Zi Wei 若作根了不见大自因了诸子阳天松，若到切着年木年农的这家住诸子亲。马的名字多年牛过今年君子这个农。天天到今扫尽到身，应天日作教身多缘故。觉他觉当今年今日到里面，江北养老的阿拉伯扎那的。Arabadana Arabadana Zeden Jeje Chenro Zeju Dali Demo Minwa Rasene Kadon Tenju Shunlo Tobayi Lojo Bobeno Lodo Ya Lo Ya Lo Ya Lo Ya Jo Jo Ya Jo Ya Lo Ya Do Do Ya Ro Ya Ro Ya Ne Ya Jo Ya Ya Do Ya Jo Ya Bo Ya Do so ye ju ye shu ya du mi ya de ya de ya wo ye do ye ge ya do ye shu ya no shu ya bo 六月九月九月莫呀罗，所以九月九月九月九月波，哦呀多呀多，一当古着人，明天那个呢？ 道友也明也不定走远老母是不尽，道月修别地地久能，高真千遍过年皆松年，过松多知木主自多数，偏坐给台七月准备过，八月正月人往光月送。马律西江举行随便度，下季祖的老所我的，途经前部的些多吉长，就是的罗波当那罗波，边就中边波当阿的香，鸟的西老居老所我的。上报同面一年能着的，秋天六月的当着边边，西藏高山六年苏年王，家家是边界拉索完的，家有有面兄弟路着当。老王这把人民过家家，上街公交跑跑有厕所，上摩大月接了所我的，西住大别叫俺的上，高当天边面包着的街。念旧那些过去送了送，嘎当那么那那说我的，当今心的自己送阿妈，莫到这边我修节奏节，到我天边都不给着节，要是就把接了说我的。就算跟着那么多结账，刚了光的些年去做年，秋到天末我住自在边，这些老马当了所我的，上将所罗给了大爷面，给上他把这边就我就。在月这边他看在把眼，生在新年能老说我的，借我更多养到那么当，这面去这边老学见，撒当老姐有点少做年，多久长月光。牛头肉三节去，昨天长南了，想出不多当年就昨天，大约去天这边做那节，到了平下山，若把小三节就能昨天长南了，想出不多当年就昨天。大约这这边做那件，到了偏下三件，主播兄三件，就当做件就能拿，想主播多当年就做件，大约这边做那件，到了偏下三件，主播兄。哎，
Nima is not here yet.
嗯。
No Nima yet.
OK，
I just texted him.
OK，
And Ken, I'm gonna try to make you host because Chris is not responding. And if I try to leave, I'll get disconnected if I'm not on Wi-Fi. I think it should work.
OK，
And so you don't have to do anything at this point. Okay. It took you as, do you see yourself as host? Ken?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'm gonna mute and because I'm wrapping up. Sorry, you guys. I'm cleaning my old place right now. I'm at a time crunch.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna mute.
本座给了先人准备过，他也着眼人王公演，马列接家之间人们都小姐做的了，上次喽，我们那边的嘛，我们那也说，我们那边的嘛，我们那说，我们那边的嘛，我们那边，我们那边的嘛，我们那边的嘛，我们说，
Ima has a right.
我们那边的嘛，我们说，我们那边的嘛，我们说，我们那边的嘛，我们说，我们，我们，我们，我们那边的嘛，我们，我们，我们，我们那边的嘛，我们说，
Rinpoche, Nima is online now.
你们那边，
我们这块累死了，
那样，
俺也起来天气，
你们对你的开始那个你的俺几个嘛都全部都通没的，对俺都这个人那么的，
你就真的刚刚什么节前不去接个东西得了，
你对俺都俺也是的，俺几个全球当过的对的，俺毕业的了，俺说国家科技当科技天线，人家呢的，人家了有没得，个人这个没那么行，
什么节 thing is
啊，
is he said
俺全部有没得是了的，俺全
he's
部，
unable to make it bigger image of himself. It's just very small.
对俺都这个人呐。我那个可是后面那嘛，面对也少啊，给我的那都那么上街路线的，我记着嘛的，对啥了，我吧小姐，哎呀，千万没得呢，俺也是用我们的圈去嘛的，俺也俺也是，
全部让这些什么节嘛，
那就搞了，俺也是确实得看来有的，你看俺都
所有的
他当的都拿工的
所有的这个所也别什么节的，
啊，说的了7岁去没得的。So dala chi ne den ne jemare ta yin jemare ten golo te yo ya re me do ten golo te wa ya ta de re ma sa ten da pe golo te sa
根本的是不是？
pe je su de lo zo ya chi me do chi ni so je Del mumbo mus mumbo ji pa chin te ji ne ta. Ji chen de de re me. De re me ya ta mo go ta yo sa ma. 아, 당가서 뒤에서 되는 집안에 되는 현행나 다 처음에도 당가서 뒤진 나게 통산이라 샤와니 했어야 되는 것을 최친이 제세야 돼. 네 뒤진 아주 아니 그문에 전에 전에 최년에 정해야나 최대 코로나 또 버지를 정해야 아니 이제 오늘 차전야 본담에서 그래 딱 겨워서 미걸로 뒤자야 사지면 접어져 라마 사지면 접어드는 나 아마 배워도 봐이나 아니 최대 코로나 또 먹어도 접어드는 걸로 지어야나
So let's begin with cultivating appropriate motivations to receive the teachings, which is one of the most important part of receiving teachings. As it says that there are two things that are very important when one is receiving the teachings. Important in the beginning, which is cultivation of motivations, and important at the end of dedications, dedicating one's merits towards all other sentient beings. So it is due to this, pure motivations in the past, there are some disciples or the listeners of these teachings have said that while receiving the teachings, they have actually gained high levels of spiritual realizations. So in order to have that, again, in order to gain such realizations, one must first lay the foundation, which is the cultivation of appropriate motivations in the beginning.
당가서 들려제 이제 차진 나게 살아면도 아니 랑게 되게 나가 되냐라 근데 랑게 민사게 되라 아니 시에지디 tempo 투병 뭐 시에지디 전나봐 아니 되라네 다 휴지 상제 세나레 치와네 랑리 집에 남아나 주고 달루주 토메네 해서 랑게 진짜 자이나면 봐다 남아서게 지투 제시면은 지 손셔도 보지 손신 받지 휴여 배워서는 지라 아니 강 세세지 매바제도나 센터니를 잡으러
So in order to cultivate appropriate motivations, one must visualize with a Shakyamuni in the space in front of oneself, and who is in fact very delightfully gazing at yourself, and then by imagining that you yourself is actually having this motivation, so receiving the teachings from them.
아야 아니 랑게 타고도 다나가서 지 최는가서 소소 나 데비서는지 손나면제와제 아니 콜라데이 땡이 봐 용수 줘봐디 봐지 빵카소르지 저와 파테네 아니 데이 땡도 소장 무슨 진짜라네 담메 넘버스네레 되잖아요 데랭이 추런 데노나 테네네 가서 되게 남한테 다게 생활아 아니 담배 체제는 롤린 체계여 상이지
So Buddha Chakmani, one who is then surrounded by all other lineage gurus of the great stages to the path to enlightenment, and then imagining that you yourself being in their presence, and you yourself is again here, surrounded by all other sentient beings, without exceptions, in a human form, and imagining that in the presence of those great beings, all of those sentient beings, along sentient beings, including oneself, engaging in the profound Dharma discussions.
tendrige meba chewa ina rewa mingen jen chagmen do ma so ge pena tamba tu be omo de ze na ma so tje sa ila me ba ja lama na je tu zewa chen be gwa ne ma so la ba zi xin be gwa ne da mo de je lin tri lin xian de so de so xin ba so de je lo ni za de tendrige de ma so rang la tu zewa chen be so so la na xian je na en so so de len sa le be so de ji guo ma chu de ga wa me do
So So here, imagining that, being oneself in the presence of those great beings, and they are gazing at oneself compassionately and having but delightfully giving the teachings of the Dharma.
哎，等这几个嘛，几年次没办用退，错来退等到了，现在你不掐退等到，看多了呢，对
So
着要不了。
let's take a couple of minutes to meditate on this. This is because such meditation will really enables one to have a sense of connectedness and sense of closeness with the great beings such as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
哎呀，这俺这哪个等下到点嘛是得过，俺就给那么偏嘛的，俺等俺都结果见到哪个接点的，俺到点嘛得过，俺就这么一点的。
So Rinpoche is still not okay with his image.
你得看这个没，看是你们都这个没。
He's unable to view anyone else but
我说你得帮着人同，
himself in this.
It must be the view that he's using because I have his image
俺
pinned.
俺继续得看同对不对了的，等等，
So
看啥？
Rinpoche going to do.
没得没得，俺说你得同，
He can only see himself. He cannot see anyone else other than himself. He said.
That's the view. He has to change his video view.
哎，他给些的搞了看这个同样的，看些搞了。
Only when somebody is speaking, then he's able to see that. Otherwise, he cannot.
啊，
Okay. Well,
过，
his image should be the main one that is seen.
那你怕去谁个懂懂不？你懂怕去谁的？
That's all.
Okay, let me try to pin him again. Oh, he's gone offline.
哪个桥噻？他们把控了谁是弄的？那搞谁些？嗯，有学生什么的？
Sunday to Rinpoche, Ranjat.
Ranja,
Oh,
다 Ranja, 얘도 가서 레이드마다 같이 곧 쳐서 갈때 저면 다 뒤에 야, 다 용서만 뒤서 돌아서. 당가서 대인다. 당가서 동보 강 다징에 나 얘기. 근데 라마 대다 얘가 손을 가르송 샤요래서나 아니 저가서 추천에 제와라 차전데 거래 송인데 거라 동보 중국 좀 때문에 제법이 쳐와서네. 근데 라마 소리. 아니 저라기 추지 친이 제 말에 추지라 조선 고선 요거여서나 니 동보 아니 세단 되면 라마치 거래 추 아니 대 추군 좀 때문에 제법이 쳐와서 동보텔라 배 개청보
so the
그 사이트 동보를 시행해 주라. 아니
first important conditions for one to receive the teachings of the Dharma is to have an authentic teacher who actually gives the real teachings of the Dharma. It is for that, right from the beginning of the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, the very important outline that we find is the greatness of the authors and given in order to show that teachings as a noble source.
당할 기바집에서 추지 쳐와서라 요네거라 아니 맞소기 강 냥설님비게 추되게 제자마 나와 땡이게 추지는 주거마도 아니 소소깔에 강 잡아대니 아니 저 세진의 전에 장아버도 소마나 이게 메세 되네 저와 땡제 되마 줘라 아니 로바 차로로 인사디 추군 쯤바 땡비시 말에 당할 기바집에서 추지 쳐와생에 대한 남제 땡비 신주제에 내 송거로.
So therefore, and then also the contents of the teachings must be authentic. It is for that we have a second outline, which is showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings.
다 chewanjinda dime chula nye she jeta she yurimba la yundi ka la ka rang la lo ne ta tsi chi dang lama kurong yi chane, gyunong yi chane rwa. Mune chone yi chi tsewa yi gyune lang ne yenpen kona bashi yi somba za mayin ba ne shi ji chu dang ya ma na wa tengen chi lama tengen tenre chi rangi ya mune tse dang dime yi duje chi zo goye tenda la kar somba shi yo rwa.
So how to listen to the teachings in which both the teachings and its authors are great, which enables one to understand that authenticity of the teacher as well as authenticity of the teachings that is given by the teacher, and then oneself included as authenticity of the listeners or the disciples of the real disciples of the Dharma, in other words.
다 랑이 교롱이 전에 주면 봐지 아니 추기 전에 주면 봐지 아니 추 템바 보이 전에 주면 봐지 차소나 아니 랑이 오늘 전에 기타 남이 지게도 송바나 이제 도송아이나 아니 랑지 자와 현재 대비 쓰세된 자와 전에 아니 랑델은 로트에 차고 알아.
So then when one is examining oneself, finding that having a motivation that is uncontaminated and the teachings that is authentic and the teacher who's giving the teachings is actual, has the actual qualification of the Dharma to give the teachings. When you find all of this, then one is embarking on the actual teachings of how to rely on the teachers, which is the root of one's spiritual path.
아지. 나 라바데 되는 가서 거기서 봐봐데 가리시고 그랬어서나 다 가서 네빠지는 마서네 지 다 싸워야 나서데 가래래 세대 건지 제용 거다 되는 가서 당시 말이 봐서 다음에도 비 싫어니 계속 시살해서 델레기 타투바지다 델레기 비게 싸워야지 진은 매너.
So particularly the teachings that we are dealing at this point, which is a chapter, which is the wisdom chapter, it is something that is very important that actually has a potential of uprooting our chronic disease of self-grasping, or the inherent, existence of the self and phenomena. We're trying to find a root cause of our sickness, in other words, and how do we uproot our sickness by applying, authentic antidotes, which is the wisdom lessons, selflessness, and that is the chapter that we are dealing with today.
당연 사지만 되고 런지 자와 신년 되면서 때는 제다 전에 많이 다 동bol라니 대대나 힘벌레 비시고 마동 많이 발 대대나 힘벌레 비시고 어떤 힘벌 제단에 비치니 동벌이 다 힘벌 제단에 비치라니 런지 나자는 게 받으세 다 힘벌레 증거지 다 동벌이 다 힘벌레 증거라서 주변 중앙에 통화 나지를 많이서는 주변 제단 주변 챔피언한테를 많이서는 다 동벌인지 다 동벌라 태생은 주고 생제 코나데 센데 제다 집에 생제나 쇼발로지 동벌인지 사생제나 쇼발로지라서 생제나 로발로고 진세 타시레레 월로베 산제 문주바데 로발로베 많이 셔바지 다 동벌인지 다 로발로베 많이 셔바나 니지 대바치 뭐 쩔라로데 제바도 도제 대바로 지지 동벌라서 상세제 로발로데 저 장내 제세 넘어서 손에 제단에 비수지 다 동벌인지 다 손에 제단에 비스라니 간라로베 텔라로바나데 아니 텔라로베 바지 강라로베 텔라로베 바지 다 텔라로베 많이 셔바질라로데 제바도 파세 타만이라로 지지 다 동벌 디자 다 파세 타만라들 주지 신나라도 편하시바데 신 대니 땡인데 그게 되제 내가 신나라도 잡도 야와지 대니 거 강급이 진세 소시 고랭에 봐 소시 랍지지 다 소시 랍지라니 신나라도 라동 랍지지 동버지 다 라동 랍지라 신사이 라동지 소대 봐 라동 로도야 라동 강비지 강배 라동 주비 세지 다 동벌라니 장대당에 저 소랑 거서 루루주고 버지비 치지 다 정화 도마니제 따와대라 페바지 다 도마니제 따와대라 보면니 대코나니는 주비를 받아 대코나니 대라 페바 뭐지 다 도마지사 대코나니 대라 보면 뭐라니 가셔면서 대가바 타랑가기 로시바 셰바텔라 대는 따와지를 제베는 바지 다 동벌라송 저 가정 먼저 뭐제 뭐 맞으면 신로 가바랑 로샤바지 당마서랑 로샤바지 로샤바세인데 돈이 또베 따와랑지를 제바 돈이 또베 다 가서 돈이 또베 투상 것을 렌지 제거로 되도는 내 동복 가리 제거잖아 내 가자 먼저 그래서 근데 가자 먼저 뭐 예배노나 다른 것을 가서 봐봐 가자들 랑지 가자들 배 가자 인세 그래서 다 랑지 가자서나 아니 시리드 뉴지 त्यसला हैन लन्च गाजा सेग्रेस अनि सिडी द न्युडी देगी डिबि ओंगे लोला थोंदा मेदाव योंगे अनि रिपि गाजा लोला छासि मेदाव अनि रे युरांगो जुबना दबा जुबना दबा जुबन जेबा अनि देदेला अनि रिपि गाजा से अनि तनगा कसु बाबा अनि तोनि तोबे तावारं जिले चेबाला अनि रानुला गाजा खारसे सेसोना अनि न्युडी द सिडी नि सेग्रेस अनि तेनोगे माछु न्युडी द सिडी नि अनि गाजा हिबि कस किदियोरेस लादा.
So we're on the chapter that identification of object of negations. When it comes to that object of negation, there are of two kinds. The one is the object of negation of the path, and object of negation of the reasonings. And object of negation of the path is referring to the obscuration to omniscience and obscuration to liberations. Those are the two objects of negation that is to be negated on the path, which been negated by the cultivation of the path. And object of reasonings is actually derived by the object of negation of the path itself, which is preventing us from seeing how things really are. And there's a different way of seeing the reality in ordinary perceptions, such as, independent self, inherent self, and self and phenomena exist in and of itself. And those are what is called object that is to be negated by the reasonings.
되지. 당은 저게 다시 내서 이 싸워기 동보더부터 그 나차기 싸워기 동보더지. 코알라 코고지 싸워 동보더부터 가르제 나사로도 가르제잖아. 아니 때문 말이 받대래. 뒤걸어 가지고 쉬어. 때문 말이 봐.
So what we are really engaging in these discussions at this point in this particular chapter is to find out the root cause of our cyclic existence, which is grasping of self and phenomena, independent self and independent phenomena.
되지. 가서 배는 가서 대대 대변의 시에데 아니 대이자 말이 돼 세다 소야 되는 아니 미세게 아니 저런 거 지게 미다던 거 말이 봐서 때 러유데 거는 참비지 받지 러가서 지도 소다 규박긴지 싸워대 말이 바래서요데 마시바데 마통한데래서 러유데 거라 거를 메이크로 다요데는 지 지로아 참비지 봐서지 나고는 여비서지 희해요 거です.
So that's why we find in the praise to dependent originations by the Lama Tsongkhapa by saying that ignorance is the root cause of all this torment. So when you say ignorance, ignorance is something that actually preclude us from seeing what things really are in this particular chapter. So therefore, we find in the dependent, the praise to dependent originations, the root cause of all this torment is our ignorance, which is referring to the grasping of self and grasping of phenomena.
되게 이렇게 정의게 남한테 손데 변한 지된 교바 진입바 대이자 말이 때문에 대이자 아니 된제데 대이자 당제데 세나니 가래나 자여르다 대이자 말이 됐을래 코노 장시 파수 수벌을 소화되도 그래서 이제도
So instead of saying the grasping at self of person and grasping at self of phenomena are the root of all this torment, but rather here in the Dhammatsangapa has stated that the root of our torment is the ignorance. When we say the ignorance is more pervasive.
대이자마 강시 통해 대도 바 땡진저와 정원 송세디 바 동치모 쉬지 자월 송다 말이 가래 통하나 말이 받는 매버서 버렸잖아 땡진저와 정원데 통송아이나 아니 말이 받대 도도 버렸어.
So therefore, in this praise to different originations, again, it went on by saying that by seeing the dependent originations, and one is able to cut the root of this grasping at self or cut the root of ignorance.
되지. 된적이 된데 생기다가 수지 용로지 깨쳐면 쉬어왔잖아. 소소기 단단가서 미통을 실로를 통되게 아니 제 가르쳐서 소소지 최용수 조베톤의 된적이 저와 저기 저투비 거라 아니 타투서기 된데는 버투비데 거라 그 줄룩이 따시에 먹고 왔잖아. 리피게 통상라 아니 된데된 게 저투 왔다. 타투는 엄마 단지 따봐도. 리피 통상라.
It is therefore the dependent origination. This is something that really corresponds to reality. It is not something to do with the belief system or something to do with the religion or something to do with some kind of, philosophical standpoint, but rather it actually presents the overall understanding of how things really are.
당가서 된노게 띵무세데 동봉건지 제대로다. 원나 띵무데 전자와 신시나 인양나 세데 가슴가서 배치되이.
So therefore here at this point, we will be continuing by reading the text itself, by saying that what is this delusion like? So that's the question. So we will be now identifying what is this delusion like. It is a timuk in Tibetan, by which literally means the ignorance.
terba jeba to na timu mari basela gro. Ne kanyi shena ase shena ge chuna la rangi tsenyi ji drupa zembi ranjin rodo bi lo de Lones, de Maripate, Sijapi Jebale, Namba Sheba, Numbo Range, Laba Jodoba, Sheba, Nyomo Change, Mishibi Onge, Mumbo Nala, Chaba da Danshi, Koa Jubi, Sabetu Juba, Namba Tanje to Gabala, Koala Doba, Namba Jago, She, Tembi Shir, Sheba, Sibi Sabet Namshite, Yina Dei Shui Lo, Yila Dame Tonane, Sibi Saben Gaba, Jo, Kikishibi Tsuju, Yi Ranjin, Meba Toma, Cha, Mari Yi Ranjiri, Meba Tonye, Chabi Jo Namba Sheba, Sibi Saben, Sabato Joba number Tanche do Bale, Nyomo da Ran, Ricasa, Nieto da Ran Sanje, Meche Zoba, Tobi Shan, Chu Samba Nala, Koa Doba, number Jab Ge, She Sonso, She Sonso, Deni, Denzi, Denzi, Shebama, Yende, Lila no, Chije, the Timu Kila Nenjet, Deshe Nyomota, the Timu Jombe, Jomba, She Jabe, Bale, Sondo.
On the page 206, continuing from the last paragraph of the page 206. What is delusion like? It is ignorance which is in context. It's an awareness that mistakenly superimpose the intrinsic nature. It apprehends internal and external phenomena as existing by way of their own character, by way of their own intrinsic character. The Chandrakirti's commentary on the 400 stanza says, it is said that one becomes attached to things by the power of an reflective misunderstanding a consciousness that superimpose an essence of things, and that stops cyclic existence by totally stopping that which serves as which serves as a seed for the process of cyclic existence. In order to indicate that the 400 stanzas, the seeds of the worldly existence at consciousness object are the sphere of activities which you see the object like itself. You negate the seed of worldly existence. Hence, Aradevas calls the seeing objects as the lacking intrinsic natures. You totally stop the seed of cyclic existence and consciousness that cause attachment. This stops the cyclic existence for Sharvaka, Pratikabuddha, and Bodhisattvas who have attained forbearance with regard to the teachings of the non-protections. This is also called in the conception of the true existence for the Aryadevas 400 stanzas, just as the tactile sensory faculty pervades the body, the delusion lies within all afflictions. Therefore, by destroying the delusions, you will destroy all afflictions. And commenting on the verse, Chandrakirti's commentary on the 400 stanza says,
되지. 데로와. 배나 가서 티모세리 배나 단다 말아서는 된지 매비선을 전화여러 체디니네 로지기 파소급이 손지 말해. 가서 통화 매반에 단지 내주의 시디기 온게 유수소 좀 간지 통화나야 단다데 동보동보데 신하게 취어나라. 가서 생이지 주바 저도 로이 나바 진짜 솔라 나가 쉬어야다. 단단 가서 카드 시비가를 저런서 나 탄다리 내 저런서 탄다리 저런서 되게 잘라 그렇지 통하나요 가서 정신지 코로나에 여바기 로렌지다 나가 쉬어야다.
so it is because of our obscurations, the two obscuration to liberation, obscuration to omniscience, which actually controls our perceptions, and so therefore when we look at, in other words, at this point, when you are looking at me and I'm looking at you, and you appears to my perception and I appears to your perceptions, and the way we are, the way we are looking at each other is in a way of their own intrinsic character. This is what we are. This is how we see things, and we see things exist as if as it appears to our ordinary perceptions. And similarly, not only that among ourselves, but also when we look at other things, objects, forms of all kinds of objects, whatever the things that object that appears to ourselves, all of them appears to us as it, as if it has, it exists their own, intrinsic, inherent character. So this is how it appears to us at this point.
Tentīgi shinchu chebe kola, bena charang tsuki nga dene tanda digi tanda nyeso dene ta yunbi kola, charang tsuki ulo digi ongi nga la peki ki juwa tanda da charang la tatang chi yoba ki sonan jine yoba re charang. Jacha ja kono dene yoba chi mato.
So for us, the way that I appears to you is I appears to you as something that exists intrinsically, on its in and of itself, 100% of appearance of in and of itself.
Ta tentigi lo peki ki tala soso lo ki jacha cheba ma yoba yunten na jacha ja yoba shisha chebe onde tanga yundi kola, yana yu tongwa chen sona pa kono ngonde yu tongwa de jacha ja. ane kono yu tongwa yina jacha ja kono yu tongwa yinba chi mato soso lo ki jawa yoba chi ki sona mebi kola ane chadangi lo de shu chamo shu ji lewa.
So it is because of their way of looking at things as their own intrinsic character in and of itself. Then, we are unable to make a connection with how object appears to us and how we actually see our way of looking at an object. We're unable to make a connection of these two. When things appear to us, we are completely thinking of the object itself, it exists in and of itself. It is because of this fixation, a fixation on that intrinsic characteristic of how things really are, then which then give rise to attachment and aversion, attachment towards someone whom you dislike, and the attachment towards someone whom you like, and this attachment aversion towards someone whom you dislike.
Tenga soki kandachi hako orisana, pena yu loi xa tsanji mato yu tindu chuba meba chila, charang yu tindu chuba re la yundu kala, charang yu lo kyunzo di ko tenpari sa la xa war. Lo kyunzo di ki tenpari sa na la piki, lo kyunzo di ki piki di zumba iba chi so mato chin nyingba ne, charang yu piki la chadang ki leka di ko yu kono la on chen di xa xa.
Until and unless you are able to find the things that appears to you is something that is mistaken, and your way of looking at things is erroneous, and you will not be able to find actual reality of the things, and self and phenomena.
Pena nga soki chala ni bachi chang yin bachi rentang chenpo yin bachi jachong wale sha yin beko la ane chi de ngone re chi de mabe re la na ane mabe de la chaba lansa do tu re do tu be kare sa na dombo kono ye peke ki ta yi din le ta ta chi ko de ma yin ba mi shen da chi yo ane ko zimba re chi bo de denba re sa la beko la ane zimba de cha so na sa na yo ma re ane so ki chi kare che so na ko la sa na ke yo ma re cha sa ke yo ma ro Tati meba je peki ki ngone ki te chala rentan chenpo te dhara yin so na cha so na sena yore ta susu yin na dabu jagur kari yin na ko tsona leba te kari denpa de zimbi ki yawa te yute ne sheme tu ki di chen chen.
So this is how we always, it's always our way of looking at the world and phenomena are really governed by our ignorance. If one is able to get out of that governance, then one will be able to see how things really are. For instance, if you have two kinds of objects, all kinds of objects on the table in front of oneself, and then in the beginning that you do not know which one is the object that has a more value and which one is object that has a less value, without knowing the difference in terms of their value, you have the way you look at those two objects are indifferent, right? But they're all, and because not being able to distinguish which one is better than other, when you come to understand when you're comparing those two objects in front of yourself on the table, that you see that one object is much better than the other, then your way of looking at the indifference between these two objects are diminished, and then you have selectively having some kind of selective way of looking at other object which has a more value, then your focus will shift to that particular object, and then you will have no attachment towards that other object which has no value, even though if that object is taken by somebody, or even if something happened to this object, you will have no regards and significance of that particular object, because you know which one is real and which one is not real.
되지. 된게 된데 참모히 로이 따바 장지마도 유대는 내게 전부 이거에 토마나 얘기 차단지 얘기 무비네 지지 민두세네. 근데 된데 참모들 고아지 렘비 니모네 아니 가서게 거의 싸워집이 말이 받는 내제 러시아고 하바도 된게 아니 말이 받게 도쇼게네 다음에 통송아이나 되네zon데 아니 가서 코알레 연락 진행이 레드 사고 말이에스 아니 녀도다 란사제도 좀 제일 줄은 저바 터바네 zon데 아니 코알레 사티 제완내 거 말이에스.
So, so when you come to understanding of this subtle level of dependent originations, when you have this, understanding of the proper understanding of the subtle level of dependent originations, then you are able to you will be able to take you're beginning to apply actual antidotes towards our misperception or the wrong perceptions, or the perception that superimpose towards self and phenomena. And moreover, if when one comes to our realization of the selflessness of person and phenomena, then one will be able to free oneself from accumulating a causes and condition to take rebirth within the cyclic existence. Just as we find in earlier that when the Shervaka in particular Buddhas, when they come to realization, when they come to realize this selflessness directly, and from that onwards, and such an individual, whether it be the Shervaka or the particular Buddhas, they will not accumulate a further causes and condition of taking rebirth within the cyclic existence.
되지. 대중 가서게 코로나 중에 도통들 라면이 도통들 시에나 상주 사바 옛날에 녀도 옛날에 옛날에 처나 제발라 이지메지 돈이 도고요 말이. 다 태바서 뭐 간제지 옛날에 전화도 표발라 이지메지 돈이 도고. 대가라 전화 접어터서는 저터 계속 요마 도세디 돈이 도비 전화 접어터 친제라 아니 뒤제나 녀소도 제게 레사바 사고 말세. 되노라 코알레도 나바샤버서도 대제데 땡토 되니라 아니 베제 팔란토바 땡키로를 처음에로 돈이도 접어터서는 전화 접어.
So, because when we look at the process of attaining the spiritual path. In other words, the 5 paths, right? The path, the first path that is to be accomplished by the practitioner is the solemn, which is the path of accumulations. And when to attain path of accumulations, to achieve path of accumulations, it is not mandatory for one to have a wisdom realizing emptiness. But when one is advancing oneself, progressing oneself from path of preparation, the path of accumulation to path of preparations, then one requires a wisdom realizing emptiness, be it as a conceptual understanding of selfless as a phenomena, or the in particular at this part of preparations, that is one's understanding of emptiness is based on generic image. So therefore, we say that whether the individual is being as a bodhisattvas or Sherpaka or the Pratyeka Buddhas, when they are on the path of accumulations, it is not necessary for them to have a realization of emptiness. But when they come to transcend from that particular part to the part of preparations, then they need to have or realization emptiness. And particularly when they come to attainment of the part of accumulation, part of preparation of a forbearance, then from that onwards, and the individual is said to be able to attain the direct realization of emptiness in as swift as possible.
Tanda de yansu tagore lile liwa cheje de timu kinla neje de deshe nyamo tangje timu chombe chomba je se de ome ye yon tiso no mocha de deshe je telegre naso yana derwa zupa de la ngaso lu se na lu le lu yon ombo de mea chinche la lu yon chwe de nyangdo gore karsa sado na icha do gore lu le lu yon ombo de macha chinche la lu de sado na icha do gore es 아니 대나게 녀모 요소 조바 되기 코 맞춰 지게데 서르세나 데모레 스티모 마리바디 마리병하게 녀다서 용거라 아니 마리바디 멤버 차소나 아니 녀모 타지 라시지 가도레 에세 아니 좀 뭐보다 되거든 그래서 가서 되게 따져 냐고 했던데
The verse that we have read earlier, it's Aryadevas 400 stanzas. Just as tactile sensory faculty pervades the body, delusion lies within all the afflictions. Therefore, by destroying delusion, you will destroy all afflictions. So you will find this verse in many Madhyamika treatises or many Madhyamika texts. So, which is also one of the very important part of understanding how by destroying delusion will destroy all kinds of afflictions. Because if one is able to when one loses this tactile sensory the faculty, it is also called the body faculty. In other words, one loses the body faculties, one actually loses the feelings of comfort and discomfort and nutrition and so on and so forth. You will have no feelings at all. And because it is because of the complete declination or the degeneration of one's body faculties. Similarly, if one is able to destroy the delusions completely, then there will be no other afflictions. Affliction is left within us to activate and cause more conditions for taking rebirth in a cyclic existence. Let's take a 10 minutes break here.
Sanje jindo mende biwa, gogo nanda shima shobo sho yedang guru, mende nanga naya daya me. Ay, tangi kale malo ya. Ay, tangi lo ba. Japin drepa le chi tangi. Shi japin drepa le chi. Timu ne se, tenang la chita denpa toba le moba niji shiro, ngobo denbi rangi ngo laba rodoba rodun juba she so, teta mariba koye tsawa yina, juba tan tsise to, jita koye tsawa sheba mete te, zui jini, mebe shiro she na, mariba dan jiti she tsi lobe jen chi sheba ne, jiba dengi kasu she simbe. De lobe dawa trapi sheba ne, oma ba jen na, shidi de shebe, ombo denba zemba ne, mariba she la. De yang nyumo jenje mariba she de, kachamba ta, jijabin jepa le, nyumo jendo she jin, jungre le jang, sondo. Ate kala che lo shara che.
Continue on reading the text. Commenting on the verse, Chandrakirti's commentary on the four understances. And because of confusion brought on by that throughout that things truly exist as they appear, delusion acts to superimpose upon things an essence of true existence, right? If, as you say, ignorance is the root of cyclic existence, then it would be incorrect for the Chandrakirtis to explain in the commentary on the middle way and the clear words that the view of perishing aggregate as I and mine is the root of cyclic existence. For there cannot be two primary causes of cyclic existence. Reply. In the section on the person of medium capacity, I have already explained what other masters say about how to assert ignorance and the view of perishing aggregates. Therefore, here I will explain the assertions of the Master Chandrakirtis and other mathematical considerations. Consider the conception of things as truly existence to be the cognitive obscurations. He asserts that such conception is ignorance, and that is what is more, he asserted, that is the reflective ignorance. For the sides above in the commentaries on the 400 stanzas explain that the conception of true existence is reflective. Also explanation of the middle way commentary says.
Tandere toa, tamazo de taji gama de kesha kare shesa na, timu de nyamo jitsi, nyamo tangi ji zawa yinpa ma zi koi zawa ya re so ma shi, rwa, di kaan. Ani tenri lawa ya na, ani tsise tang jupa le, ani jita, ani koi zawa re la do, ani te tata degi ma re we se na, ani jita shi tse de la, ani loben jen tang, ani lu degi, ani pa de tawa taba, uma tangi lu dagi ma re se tir.
So now here we're saying the timuk, or the ignorance, is the root cause of our afflictions and the root cause of cyclic existence. And if this is so, then others arguing by saying that, how about the grasping of perishing aggregates because it is said in the clear word, it is said in the clear word as well as the Madhyamaka's Madhyamaka Avatara, where it is stated that grasping at the perishing aggregate is said to be the root cause of all these afflictions and root cause of secular existence. So then one here says that, well, when it comes to the grasping at perishing aggregates, it's a different way of explanation. Different way of explanation is found based on the different philosophical tenets.
되지. 다가 저기 가르치고 그래라와나 엄마 란치바 면체게 아니 지다 당진세나 아니 녀모레에서 아니 덴진세나 엄마 란치바 시리레에서라고 엄마 란치바 면체게 아니 당진리스 용수 조바데 녀모레에서라지 데 엄마 란치바게 덴진세데 시리레에서라지 데 말 시리레스지 다 오마 탄제유로라 아니 단진 세나레 덴진 세네 니가 지바레 니가 아니 녀지레 살아오레.
So on the difference the way the Madhyamaka Prasanjika and Madhyamaka Swadhantika's assertions on this of grasping at self is that now Madhyamaka Swadhantika, which says the grasping at self or person is said to be the obscuration to liberations, and grasping at truly existence of the self in a person is said to be the obscuration to omniscience. However, when it comes to Madhyamaka Prasanjika, there's no differences. Both of them act grasping at self or grasping at self or grasping at truly existence of phenomena and self are all said to be the obscuration to liberations.
다가 저기 소소 나쪽에 돈에 네 조타포와 라라게 해시 가래님바 아니 란지기베 따지잖아요. 양내 제도 나네 봐 표선 속에 양라로 다 네바도 그여야 지로 다 조타포와게 따주세대 양 따지 텐제 차라고 조세세대 양 네바도 그비서 지래 다 되게 메시 되게 로제게 지마도 아니나요. 맞쪽에 단다 뭐네게 뭐지 사저데 오마 탄지 따와 아니 지타 세나레 마리바 세나레 아니 코이 자와레 녀모레 세데 뭔지 사데 아니 바덴다와 저바도 고불루두 아니 디시기 제스나네 코냐네 제소나 노티스게 마로.
So now it's for us as the followers of those Madhyamaka. It depends on one's own, inclinations and mental dispositions, and which one that you wanted to be asserted, whether one that is, or if one asserts as is asserted by the Madhyamaka Swadhantika, or if it allows us to understand having a better mental capacities or mental inclinations or the disposition, one can then follow the Madhyamaka Prasanjika. Suddenly, it is, far better if one is able to follow and to be able to adapt the Madhyamaka Prasanjika's standpoint of grasping at self and grasping at phenomena.
아이 단데 세보세 잔도아 델호벤 다와 트라페 셰파네 손도아 오마바 젠지 시디디 셰피 덴진 셀라데 오마 라지바 메체게 덴지데 시디도 그레스 아니 데 아니 마리바 셰바 마세 녀모 셰바 마리바 셰바 마세 녀모지제 마리바 셰그레 손도아 덴 타제.
So we have read earlier that says earlier, but saying that in the section of the person of medium capacity, I have already explained that Master says about how to assert ignorance the view of perishing aggregates. Therefore, here I will explain the assertion of Master Chandrakirtis and other mathematicians consider the conception of things as truly existence to be the cognitive obscurations, and he asserted that such conception is ignorance, and what is more, he asserted that is afflictive ignorance.
아니 주발 주제래 장지 데 선제나 제다네 비모보 따와로 뭐바 시에베나 데무데 세바나 자신도시나 가르치는 걸 데무세라고 그러잖아 선제나 제다 뭐비네시 강이바 따와로 뭐바 시에베나 데무세라 그래야지 얘네 말이빠 뭐비 장게 뭐 yopa mayimba dondoba sheba rangshin towa la dribi dani jendo dani jene gyunzo po shedang sodo maripa se de la lo gyunzo pa segre.
So now here in the text itself, what it says now, the middle way explanation of the middle way commentary says because the causes living beings to be confused in their view of the actual state of things. It is delusion. Ignorance mistakenly superimpose upon things an essence that they do not have. It is constituted so as to block the perception of their natures. It is a concluder.
Tiga nga tsu tiriya, timu rangshin drishi gyunzo de sede, timu la gyunzo se la gire, pena gyunzo denpa shibi gyunzo tenya telo ko, gyunzo denpa se de la, kola denpa se de la, lo gyunzo bi ngwa la de, tuyana me dewa chana, gyunzo denpa se de, lo zumbi ki ngwa la se na re, timu la gyunzo se gire, timu se gire, kola gyunzo se gire, rangshin dribi chana gyunzo se la gire, songra, timu rangshin drishi gyunzo de se.
So the ignorance is also known as, sometimes it is also known as the concluder. It is something that is not clear. It is also, in other words, it's also sometimes it's also called, it is also known as conventional truth. What is it?
대단한 sendo siben yalake yonsu typa nyumo cheche maripi onge kenzo je denpa namba shako she tende yala chinyi ke tombo shepe na nyumo cheche shidi mino osana nyumo yinchi shidi mino ala nyumo yino yinchi shidi mino osa yawa tende shikda.
So here it says now also thus conventional truths are deposited through the force of the afflictive ignorance, which is included within the force of cyclic existence. Thus, because of this explanation, that is the first. Oh, sorry, overread. So, okay.
Teaching 가서 대바니 시에 근조 대바다 대다 대바세 니가라 대바 여러와. 근데 그 근조 대바세는 그 대바 간제세네레서는 로 근조 뭐라 대자 대로 메대와 있잖아. 근조 대바세 그래. 근조 줌바세 그래. 대다 대바세는 로 대다 담바 동료도 로이 뭐라 대바 있잖아. 대응비네스레 대바데레 소야 돼. 대다데레.
So we all familiar with the conventional truth and ultimate truth, right? What is meant by conventional truth is something that is true with regard to the conventional consciousness. And then true, what is meant by true of ultimate truth is it is a truth for the ultimate consciousness, which is referring to the wisdom, realizing emptiness.
시리 이제 가서 뭐 이제 시리 민어지. 원나 시지 주버 강나 시제 시제나지. 데네 오도 때만 저러 대나사. 야라지 동비 마리 바데 코이 자와 임발라 지타양 코이 자와 임바 시바네 마리 바제당 지타 제다 임베 가와 메도 손도 가와 메도지 알로 테바데 지노르 지타데 게텔 레히데잖아.
So that's because
네 먹고 차수 되는
대시와 can something did
네. 하는 거 지어서 봐도 뭐가.
that's all it is or last 대시와.
음.
That's because that explains that it is the first of the 12 factors dependent arising. It is an afflictions and not cognitive obscurations. What are the cognitive obscurations? This will explain below. Therefore, the explanation that that the ignorance, which is the first of the 12 factors, is the root of secular existence. Within that, he also explained that the view of perishing aggregates is the root of secular existence. Since ignorance is the general category, that the view of perishing aggregate is an instant intense, so there's not contradictions.
예, 단지 지타데 그 말이 봐도 거의 싸워 있는 지타 시세도 오만 주발에 지타데 거의 싸워 시바다 아니 가와 차도도 써야 돼 내가 계체들에 얘나 던지래 당연히 처음인데 맞아 코아코비 걸로 던져 양라 중에 네 말이 봐도 토미 말이 봐 니바 대시jel에서네 아니 간제 거의 싸워대 지타 말이 봐도 시야로 말이 봐서 던지기 말이 봐도 찌기 말이 봐서네 찌기 타니 제발에 송아지 뭐
So now here in this particular the verse, the paragraph that we have read earlier, it just actually shows that there's no contradictions of being the root cause of secular existence, root cause of afflictions, whether it be it as a ignorance or the grasping at perishing aggregates and so forth. There's no contradiction between the two. There's no contradiction in this between these two, ignorance and the grasping at perishing aggregates.
먼저 제가 가르쳐 버렸잖아. 마리바이는 제다인 거 말이야. 제다이나 마리바야인 거.
So the difference is now here to be clear that if it is perishing aggregates, and it should be ignorance. It should be ignorance. It has to be ignorance. But if that is ignorance, it is not necessarily be the perishing aggregates.
배나 간절스나 배나 가서 시 배나 힘동도 오지 시 힘동도 코 라신 주반지면 집한테 마리바레마도 지다 말해. 지다이나 표배 가르고서 지다이나 인지 미지 배나 나라시 주반지 봐. 아니 나요 와서서 내 나이 이래서 나한테 용셔봐 보러 진짜도 인지 미지 나도 저와요 같은 거.
So for instance, when you look outside and you see the tree, the true existence of the tree, or the grasping at the tree as something that exists intrinsically, it is ignorance, but that is not a perishing aggregates, grasping at perishing. That's not a grasping at perishing aggregates. When we talk about grasping at perishing aggregates, it's here referring to either grasping at, inherent existence of the self or person, or mine or my, grasping at the my things, that is inherent existence of the my things, inherent existence of the my parts, inherent existence of the my limbs, and so on and so forth, are the perishing aggregates.
되지. 되지 여하세는. 마다 여하세는. 가서 제가 마세나 되지 가서 예. 다 다녀도 여기 가서나 리레. 아니 다 무비네스게 지 코로 다지 코로라 라자오 편이 가서. 아니 대 표식이 배나 가이 라바 가이 콤바세야 너데. 마다 여하세. 가시 가이와 이세제데 가시 가이와데. 아니 되게 다 질레데 가사 되니 아니 시지지 셈바생이야 요래. yang koyi komba da ngai komba da ngai ene mota da ngai chi senge yang de ge mo shi bo bo zi chue de de in de nga da ngai yo se de ka ji ka sa kono la o de chi le lo do wa se na ko da jo shu chen bo ye nge chi.
So grasping or perishing aggregate is, as we talked about earlier, the grasping at self or person, the inherent grasping of self or person, in other words, and then an inherent grasping of mine and my, such as my hand, my limb, my legs, and so on and so forth. All inherent existence of my limbs, inherent existence of my hand, inherent existence of my head, and then so on and so forth. So those are all grasping at perishing aggregates. But they're also, again, and it's based on the different schools of thoughts. They have a different assertions, because some they might say that they assert that grasping at perishing aggregates should be something that is other than grasping at perishing aggregate is a self of person and that belongs to that particular person. Belongs to the particular person, particularly of the limb of that particular person's body. Other than that, it cannot be a grasping or perishing aggregate. However, in other schools of thoughts may say that not only that, but also whatever that belongs to that particular person, such as my house, my bed, my things, my so on and so forth, are all something that is mine, grasping at mine and my inherent existence are all said to be the grasping at perishing aggregates. That's the differences.
nganzi jita yin ngayo jita nganzi jita ni shi ngayo jita yin nga rashi zhuba de long shuba pa wo se de chi yin chi mi chi ko dangzi dan zhuwa yin nga dangzi se da nganzi dan zhuwa nganzi de kaka xia yin ma de ko di yi rashi ji zhuba de di long shuba pa da wo jin zin do kuni yi jata de ko zin do.
So however, whether this perishing aggregates of grasping at perishing aggregates, be it as a person or mine or mine, all of those graspings are actually rooted in a grasping of self, grasping of inherent self. They're rooted in the grasping of inherent self.
된적이 로데 야이 슈침벌 나가 슈슈슈 저래다 된적이 빼나 대마타들 지 가제 대왕이 차바된 이제 저기 대마타도 당화돼 코 빼지 가서는 몇지 라바 투사면도 나서 콜 나주 대야서래 들리지래 된적이 짓다디 슈체비 오게 아니 차단이 돼 깨지래 차단이 돼 하나 매제 가서 몇 서버지는 장난 거는 쳤다 이소래 차라고 슈침부 슈를 가서 단단 남의 전에 자샤를 마도 but me no use on the door
So the grasping at inherent self or person is something that is very, very powerful. We are not being aware of that at all. In fact, we are protecting it. Just as we protect our eyes when we go out and when the wind blows and the dust are when the dust are blown by the wind and our first reaction is to protect our eyes, right? It is the same manner we are giving a protection to our grasping at self or perishing aggregates. It is because of the strong grasping at self or perishing aggregates, we have innate grasping at self or self or perishing aggregates. Grasping at the perishing aggregates is something that is so strong. It is because of that, a powerful grasping at self, grasping at the perishing aggregates, which give rise to all kinds of negative thoughts and emotions, such as attachment and aversions. And as soon as when someone says something, at a one instant, you will have either dislike or the lack of dislike are all triggered due to this very strong grasping at self of or grasping at perishing aggregates.
야, 딱 된적이 참고 소소 지 메데가데 집어서게 된적이 이미 톰베토네 근데 나 생이지 또 땡데 젠라 땡데 촉거 봐 그래서 얘를 지지라이 봐 가서 현다 파 요쇼다 시기 중앙지를 맞춰 땡거 봐 나기 중앙지 땡거 봐막 지지 되니 하나 배치지 Guha Sorichi, Yando Sorichi Mado, Juates Rona, Yana Rido, Yana Chado Sorichi, Nansi Masu, maybe Mena, to take huge chambers, Karijan Yore say, Joating Monele Chua.
So we really need to understand that all this discomfort and unhappiness that is taking place in our continuum is really coming into being from grasping at this perishing aggregate that we really have to understand. We really be aware of that. We're not being aware of that at all. So therefore, we're not really, thinking about that. One is not solidly existence. One is not something that exists in and of itself. There's no inherent existence of the self. Must be reminded time and again. If possible, one should have this innately feeling of non-existence of inherent existence of self. Then this will really help us. Otherwise, because if our self or my body and so on and so forth are actually dependent upon external condition and internal conditions. And it is not something that exists independently by itself. Whether our self or the self of body are actually dependent upon the internal, elements as well as the external elements. It cannot it cannot stand by itself without depending on those factors.
Tawa kwa shu chimbo hewa de shangshu sen lapa de pe de ye jinse de ro ro tente sana to yin be kala ta nga so ye ama jenyu de baba jenyu ma tente kecha sa ji ma shi ne tente ye kwa ra ba le be kala rani so wa de ne yenda ba yu sho de rani so wa kono tente ye jinse che ne so ta shi be kala yang jen sen de za chimbo yin ba da jin nya ju mo no lo on bo no bo so ge jang jinse de ro tente sana to ne lo jang de la yang on bo no bo yu lo jang shu che wo yore ne ten wo yoro jinse yore.
When one is able to focus one's mind on the dependent originations, how one is dependently existence, will really again reinforce one's practice of bodhicitta, compassion, and so on. Because when you come to understanding of oneself as a dependent existence, then one will be able to understand that one's very existence and one's very sustenance of this life is really dependent upon others. And when you have this concept, when you have this understanding, you automatically have appreciations for other beings, which enables one to develop and enhance one's practice of compassion and bodhicitta.
맞아 대로 엄분 너보다게 따지 레바제는 맞아 주고 말해서 이제 간제 근데도 맞아 대해서 체로 봐 따지 제원하게 제거 예절에나 텐솔 뭐라 내가 말해서 그러 탑제네 샤워를 주는 마도 텐솔 뭐네 자네 샤워를 때라 타지네 주고 말해서 이제 뭔가 좀 엄분 너보게 존나 조통 다들 체리기 제바 제원하게 로통 되.
So therefore, we find in the text that there's way in which that their generation of bodhicitta is dependent upon the practitioner's faculty, the sharpness of their faculty, their intellects. There are some who is able to generate their bodhicitta by understanding the dependent originations, and which is referring to the sharp faculty ones, and who's very understanding of dependent originations, dependent upon others. It's really it's something that is without any doubt of being an inherent existence of self, or the independent existence of the self, enables one to understand that one's really very existence and very sustenance of one's life is dependent upon others, which then lead oneself to not only to understanding the dependent origination of oneself, but also rendering one's appreciation to other sentient beings which enables one to complete both practice of compassion and wisdom realizing emptiness.
그래서 가서 뵙게 정도다. 드시지 가서 내려 가서 있어 그래. 따당도 이제 배나 로장년에 쟁여를 세디 지 하는 맨내 줘봐래 세디고 시도명에서는 싫어 제밤에서는 배대 지 더지 냥추 대비서는 이게 천한 되기도 아. 뜻기는 말이고 남주 새 통보이 배제도네 신주 제기지로.
So normally when we talk about someone who is a practitioner of the mind training, who is followers of the mind training practitioners, or someone may say, oh, he is a yogi and so on and so forth. As soon as we hear the name of the practitioner of mind training or the yogis, we have a feeling of, someone who have indifference feeling towards all other things, which is however it's not so. But rather the practitioner of mind training, followers of mind training, or the yogis who are actually constantly activating their wisdom and going through the analysis of how things really are and who we are, what is meant for self, the way of the mode of existence of the self and all other sentient beings. They are in a constant investigating how things really are.
다대야 델라 마리바네 데도 아타가서 마리바세 가르치려고는 델라 마리바네 리핀 도쇼이라지 리방 강 롱롱라 메자이 다메비테 코나니 리피 싫어보 소다 어때니 갈래가로 로이로 있긴도다 많이 빼진보다.
So now let's read through the text here. Ignorance is opposite. Ignorance is the opposite of knowledge. And this does not refer to just the knowledge, but to the wisdom that knows the reality, that is selflessness.
마리바 생인데 세기되긴 도쇼기로 되라 얘니 로 강에 지자는 리그래서 말레스 마리바긴 도쇼데 가르사는 다음에 또 비셔 대코나니 리비 니 지바이 시데레서.
So here can any of those consciousness be the opposite of the maripa or the ignorance? It is not so. The actual opposite of the maripa or the ignorance is the wisdom realizing selfness, so wisdom realizing emptiness.
이 도쇼네도와 싫어데 매바상도 텔레젠바상은 메롱예 디 겐다진바오 세도데.
Then here it's going to say that the opposite of that cannot simply be the non-existence of the wisdom, non-existence of that wisdom, nor can it simply be something other than that wisdom.
리파 이세다 마리바니 시치기 된다 제타 몽게지고 제타 도쇼 가쇼 따다 징이지라.
The way these two are opposite of each other is because their mode of apprehension, object of mode of apprehension, is completely contradictory.
되지. 다다가서 하고래. 빼나 마리바스에서나 다다가서게 메타바리 그 말에 다음에 버리 그 말에 소소지 치 용수도 봐 하나 배치 가서게 소소지 쳐놓라 자체치 장지리가 아예 지금 말와. 대 도쇼 장지를 마리바스 그 말에서. 디 용수 조바리네 용수 조바 세고 창게달라. 아니 리파 이시. 대 코나니 리비리바 소소지 치 간제지나 뭐 내루 So the
Rigpa Yeshe, or the wisdom consciousness of wisdom consciousness, in other words, which really understand how things really are, the reality, actual nature of reality, is said to be the actual opposite of the Marikpa or the ignorance.
Genda meditation zemba oji. Then dad tihire ripa genda meditation ti karen zingursana. Then dad drondo ba yela aji. Then chuche dad drondo ba tang, gansa ge dad drondo ba ni yembe. 취지 단지다 간사게 단지 이가 말이 봐이노 대시를 지다 녀모바 탄지제 자와템바 마리바 마리바 자와 마템바 마이라지 지수 풍부제바 대시텔랑 간제예 제 취지 다도 뭐비 마리바 간사게 다도 뭐비 제템바 나 템바나 마리바 난세니 제데스 조시 템베나 지타 마리바레 제비 뇨모 탄지제 자와 템바 가와 메도 로베지 공바 데타시 메시나 코이 자와 이스 시비 가와 pan 신도 가오 손도들
So therefore, it is the conception that is what is wisdom, wisdom in a contradictory equivalent. This is the superimposition of the self. There are two types: the superimposition of an objective self, and the superimposition of the personal self. Thus, both the conception of the personal self and the conception of the objective self are ignorance. Therefore, when he indicates that the view of this perishing aggregate is the root of all other afflictions, that does not mean that ignorance is not the root. As also the Nagarjuna's precious comment says, as long as you conceive of the aggregates, you conceive of them as I. This means that the ignorance that is confusion in regard to an objective self cause confusion with regard to the personal self, the personal self. Since this places the internal divisions of the ignorance in the cause and effect relation, it does not contradict the teachings that view of perishing aggregates. It's a root of all afflictions, other than ignorance. If you do not understand this way of explaining that the master Chandrakirti intended, then it is very difficult to dispel the false impression that he contradicts himself by explaining that explaining the root of cyclic existence in the two different ways.
대체 동보 가족이 대시발로 동보 취재 단지의 가사기 단지 시시에가 취기 내지래 취재내데 배나 가사 세나 가서 배나 다다가서 무슨 가사다 이게 동봉가서 세계 이제 넘버시바 가사를 생겨다 동봉가 가사를 생겨 좋다 뭐 보이는 거지 단단가 속이디 엄마 타지는 시대 가사세디 아니 다 로이 샤츠치 당한지 세그래베 데 타니 상주에 병한지 데레지라 가사세디 대다도 조번지면 당제라 네 가사게 당제슬라 아니 가서 폰소지 주 간지 다도 조번제서나 아니 취지 당제세나 동보 데 여와듯이 취기 내지래라다 당제니 여와셔다.
So, although there are different ways in which that the assertions of the self or person is self or phenomena in accordance with the different philosophical tenets. However, when it comes to the Madhyamaka Prasangika, here what is meant by this actual self? The self is something that is mere imputed by name or the term and conceptions. And how the way in which we understand that particular self is not actually imputed by term and conceptions, but rather the way we understand the self is something that inherently exists without, there's no understanding of we are lacking the understanding of that particular self is something that is mere imputed by conception and the name or the term, but rather we look at the self as something that exists inherently. That is what we call self or person, grasping at the self or person. And then grasping of self or phenomena, it refers to one's own, what that is but this belongs to the self. And other phenomena are something that is not actually imputed by conceptions or the term or name, but rather all those things other than self are also exist in and of itself by its own side, or by way of its own intrinsic character. It's grasping at such phenomena is said to be self, or grasping at the self of phenomena, in accordance with the mathematical Prasangika. So both of these two are known as ignorance. Therefore, here we already read earlier the Nagarjuna's precious garden, right? As it says, as long as you conceive of the aggregates, that you will conceive of them as I. This means that ignorance, that is confusion in regard to the object of self, objective self, cause confusion with regard to the personal self.
간사 다든 점에 점바당 취지 당진이 되네 동보 간사 다든 점에 점바대 것도 저거래 살아오다 그 당마정에 토면도 오지들이 변에 대주경아 저기 깨치 제바집에 가라 아니 변에 세대 제바집에 간사 변 아밍에다 점바탑에 간사 코로나 나시지 소화진 것도 지친제라 뭔가 있어서 소화된 것도 지친제라 아니 변화 야라 강요로 지기 제제네 가세도 로트 제거래 해서 원당에 제거지 민로서 딱 된지기래 동보한테라 이제 시유조군을 소바 된지기를 소화해봐도 냥도 아니 코라시 주변 지면 바디 레그레스 디기 제제네 가이 소화 변화 라바 교조단에 이니시는 가서 제요에 도와지라요 지 대두기 소화지래네 이제네 가서 제요에 된지기 토는 간쟁고 인자 로 제는 이차네 and Kansaki Danzi near the Jerry, Denzi near the Jerry Meadows. He started and she the end of Michi. Kaja Pungo that the Zibat and Kazada the Zimani, Jetta Canado was a Chebarita.
So now, when it comes to the sequential order of which one is grasping at self, emerges first, or the grasping at self or person emerges first, or the grasping at in self of phenomena emerges first. So when it comes to the sequential order, there's not exact sequential order is given. There's no proper sequential order is given. However, when I think of myself, I always think that self or person, grasping at self or person emerges first, and then that give rise to the grasping of self or mine and my. Because whenever we think of even the child that is the newborn child who is actually crying, it's some kind of feeling is there. The feeling I or self, something that is discomfort, is enabling that letting the newborn child to cry. So in which case, from my own perspective, from my own understanding, my own idea, is that self or grasping at self emerges first, which then eventually leads to the grasping at self or phenomena, or grasping at self or mine and my.
대나게 맞아 단다랑 가서 내가 시에서나 눈이 아생이 로지코는 제에데 나요 지기 제시네 나요 지를 초알레네 제시네 네 가서 들고 민로와세 다 된르데 지레 다 간제 kenyi 지레도.
So sometime again here, when we think about I is again triggered by mine and my.
된르게 산나도에 두분들
So that's we need to think about. We need to analyze and examine ourselves, because sometimes when you are having some kind of different feelings in your hands. And you think of a hand. And then you go, my hand is whether you're having a pain or, or you're going through a certain kind of suffering of your parts of your body. First, you think of the my hand, and then goes to the my. So it's again that's a debate. It's we had to examine very carefully which comes first.
도버테 당신 개척하는 시와제 근데 나도 나요니 이게 로기 제링이 개척의 시로와 로기 제링 가능해는 레고에나 코드냐도를 당신 현재다 사실제 코바 가서에는 도매들 해서
So, however, so long as we have this grasping at self and grasping at self for person, of grasping at self for phenomena, and we have this innate grasping at self is always there. The innate grasping at self will always coming into being in conjunction with grasping at self and grasping at phenomena.
근데 얘나요 거의 저 말이 봐봐 가고 말에 지다이 봐 가고 말세데 차다게 레지 사치질라 나나요 나요 생이지 로진 제바지 말에 진짜라 아니 차다이 개체도 용사 걸어라 말에
So when
말이 지다게 거의 저러다
so how this grasping at perishing aggregate becomes the root cause of our delusion, root cause of our reflections, and root cause of our suffering is because all those attachment and aversion are coming into being from this grasping at perishing aggregates, right? Grasping at perishing aggregates, which give rise to then attachment and aversion. And it is because of this attachment and aversion we engage in the physical and verbal actions, which enables us to accumulate negative karmas, which then result in taking rebirth in cyclic existence.
대체 민가집도 시에도 대 로벤주 공부했다 시에바 미시나 거의 자와 니스 시에비 가상가와데 방신의 가그레 손에 되다 땡이 단대텔로
So this is what it says here. If you do not understand this way of explaining what the master Canticate intended, then it is very difficult to dispel the false impression that he contradicts himself by explaining the root of cyclic existence in the two different ways.
도저 담을 때자도 되제데 진다 주주바는 게는 tomba이나 다리니다 다리 근이다 나tom바래 아니 나 다리 쳐선 자로샤라 아니 나가서 다송스 되서라 말에 거기 티파를 tom바이나 계주 카나 아니 가서 다리니다 다리 걸라 아니 저라요 바치살라다.
So we'll have two more class in December, the 2nd of the December, and the 9th of the December, the 9th of the November. So there were two more class in November. The first 2 weeks of the November, we have a class. Other than that, then after that, I will be going to India. So then we'll have no class for a while. So if it is convenient for all of you, then you can just send out the letter.
담아서 되는 추선이 이래라 아니 그 오미 다학계다 전부된 돈이 제백이 털어 되네 아니 라시 선제 다지 제제네 거기 자와집이 말이 뭐 가네 아니 리바이시 아니 돈이 또 베샬라 손제는 저 라지를 제네 네 라시 선제 다지 제니 빠 손이 도네 아니 손주 도지 전이 거고 니만이가 더버지 쇼 대가로랑 이따바시게 셰니바 엔데나 쇼베네 라마나지 신절로도서 세네네 고한다 방안이가 제다.
Let's do our dedication here by means of our discussions on the view of emptiness based on Madhyamaka's standpoints. By means of that, may myself and all other sentient beings, the root of cyclic existence and root of afflictions be eliminated. And it is through that may myself and all other sentient beings accumulate merits and accumulate insight by perfecting these two accumulations, and may all sentient beings and myself be able to attain complete state of unity, which is referring to the state of enlightenment, as swift as possible. May all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas please bless me to be able to do this.
Doge Jini Sabi Gewa Di Dedon Jowa Gyula Kampe Dong Cheba Jizun Lo San Choba Yi Debi Nipo Rin Zeje Shu Sa Jin Beji Shu Ji Min Du Zhang Re Rao Li Ji Nye De Jinpa Di Sang Ji Jin Du Mi De Bi Wa Yi 诸根当大行，热波修，结我更多养大那么大，这边去这边那同学见，撒当那这有的少做的，多就讲给个，用到修也当个这上。 面对那个那样大呀面，天天人都别能说你呢，看到阳光看西撒巴的，路面马的给动着我呢，那真家也红不到就急，天帮身边菜到更多样，家边养就在原节中的，天边人把更长那就就。 年年周别见到你洗手，让给几天多别浪就呢。修着自月正月到给就，若月月就明白谁先呢？教育担保有人真就急，担保人情出给忙叫吧，悄悄娘把举杯说的呢。 你就前辈一绕就把一，天天代代在我先把手，世间教育民众天天的，来着相求浪就人别讲，他的浪就一浪别的心，教育自把人都讲究起，浪上主别听见主心经。 夜间世界门当明明根，才让更多家园门把眼，难道能当这王忙就急？刚才太棒就那就学着，期间住了中国的院子，土地能就大多着些紧，着些将子手。 有就安心，就在那边过才上天津，那个城内说着就把当，老张点笔正面撒松鸡，若有面色当，念就安心，看着这月过于心安舒。 别当的我忙的教育的，现在在我电子讲作业，小白身体不点就钱，小白八月就打钱包当，更多总部电样的钱的，得到根据技术道路是，给我得到当街少多工。 就算西边叫我当姐姐，我刚了就多我的，大仙给人找我的根讲，从不是绕多我就，哎呀，吐气，天就，
Thank you.
那
Thank you,
这
Deepak.
样，
Rinpoche. Stand up now.
yeah.
Thank you.